Howdy. Do I look alright? I'm in Homeland Heritage Park. I'm on the porch of a log cabin. This cabin wasn't originally in Homeland. It was moved here from the Winston area, which is part of Lakeland now. In fact, the only building here that's still in its original spot, original foundation, is the school building. There's a church here that was across the street south of the school. It was donated to the county, to the Heritage Park some years ago, and moved across the street so it would be on the Heritage Park site. And there are a couple of other houses here that have been moved from other places in Homeland. But I think nearly all of them are originally from Homeland, somewhere here, except for this log cabin. And it was donated to the Heritage Park a couple of decades ago, I believe, and moved here. Pretty neat. It's a small cabin, and it's got a wraparound porch, which is real common back in the day when these were built. This was at turn of the 19th century when this cabin was originally built in Winston. There's some sags here and there. It was refurbished before it was ever moved. I think there's been some additional work on it since it was moved. Back to life in Homeland. One of the adventures we had that could have turned out to be a misadventure. Nobody knows it was broken up by adults. But there were, I don't know, half a dozen or so boys. I was, I think, the youngest in the group. But a couple of them were like 10 or 11 years old. And they found a 20-foot piece of 2-inch pipe. And it had a cap screwed onto one end. It was kind of rusty. They'd found it in little scopes of wood not far from where we live, right off 4th Street. So it was handy to where we lived, but they were trying to figure out something to do with that piece of pipe, and they decided that would be neat to make a steam cannon from that pipe. So we moved it around to a place where we could suspend the one end of it, the open end, from between 2 pine trees. Somebody found some rope or went home and got up some rope, but the end of the pipe was going to be elevated probably 6 feet, and then the bottom end, we were going to pour water in that. I don't know how much water. Somebody had figured it out. And one of the boys had whittled out a plug from a pine limb, and we were going to get the water in and drive the plug in, and then light a fire, build a fire under the sealed end. And when the steam pressure got high enough, it would fire the gun. Sounded like great fun. And everything went along fine. nobody was paying much attention or even thought about figuring out what we were trying to do until the older boys built the fire. And once they got the fire started, naturally the smoke got people's attention, and the father of one of the older boys that were with us came over to find out what was going on, and he saw the contraption and figured out what was going on almost immediately and started kicking the fire away from the pipe and telling us how foolish we were. That was old rusty pipe. He said he just as well could have blown up on the fire end instead of doing what you thought it was going to do. So he scattered the fire, knocked out the plug, and took the pipe away. So that was the end of our steam cannon. I was looking forward to seeing how far it would go. And we had it aimed off into a field, so there was no danger of it hitting anybody. So we thought. But as that father said, had the bottom end blown up, it would have hit several of us. So we did have some misadventures as well as adventures. I broke my right arm. Probably I was around 5.5. My brother and I were playing follow the leader, and he was the leader, so I was the follower. And he, I mentioned before, he's a year and 4 months older than me. So he was trotting around the yard, in and out of bushes and this and that, and finally got around to climbing up on the rabbit hutch, on the end of a row of rabbit hutches. And as I mentioned in an earlier video, the rabbit hutches had tin roofs to keep the rabbits shaded and out of the weather. And he climbed up there, and he would jump from one to another, and I was following along behind. Of course, they weren't very far apart. He'd jump to one and run across it and jump to another, and I was following along. And towards the other end, there was a hog wire fence between that row of hutches down at that end, north end, and the other set of hutches. And they were probably, well, no, that I misspoke. We were on the east end row of hutches, and the barbed wire, the hog wire fence separated the rabbit pens from the grove. That's what it was. But anyway, when he got to the end hutch, he jumped over that hog wire fence into the grove. And the fence was a couple of feet away from the hutch. And when I jumped, I didn't quite clear the fence. And one foot hit the top of the fence. And I pivoted forward and landed on my right elbow. And it broke the upper bone of my right arm just above the elbow. So I had to wait until my dad got home, because we only had one car, and my mom made me as comfortable as she could. And after a bit, the pain kind of dulled, and I was okay. Still hurt, but I was dealing with it. But when Dad got home, they took me up to the emergency room in Bartow, and they set my arm and put it in a cast. So we had adventures and misadventures. but we had a lot of fun. And as I said, at any given time there would be either me, my brother and sister would be playing there at home, or we'd be wandering around town, and before long there'd be 6 or 8 of us all gathered together trying to devise some game to play or something to do. And that was always fun, getting other people involved. Let's see. Yeah, I'm getting past 10 minutes, I think, so I'll say that, save what I'm thinking of now for another video. It runs long, but for now, that'll do.